Hey everyone, so this is a call. And what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the amount of stimulus necessary in order for a sexual transmutation practice to be effective. I'm going to try to be relatively brief in this video, and I'm going to also teach you a quick practice towards the end of the video. Now, the practice I'm going to teach you towards the end of this video, it's going to seem familiar to a lot of you, but it's the most basic practice possible that which demonstrates, demonstrates the point of the video. So, sexual transmutation practice, in order for it to be effective, and the reason I'm doing this question is because it was a question. It came from one of my clients who asked this question over email, and so I figured I'd just make a video instead. It's easier for me to make a video than to type all this out. So the answer to how much stimulus is needed is you don't need porn, you don't need fantasy, you don't need sex, you don't need any sort of kink, you don't need any sort of strong stimulus, you don't need to edge for an hour and a half. Well, what I mean by edging is masturbating for a long period of time and not ejaculating. I'm gonna have to do a separate video on that. That's a whole other can of worms. But the purpose of a transmutation practice is to link one to sensitivity, and that's not to say you can't create a stronger, more kind of like, I'll use the term hedonistic charge. In order for a transmutation practice to be effective, you can do that. Sure, you can do a transmutation practice in the middle of sex. You can do it at various times. That's fine, but you don't need the strong charge. What you need is the subtlety in order to cultivate sensitivity, because it's sensitivity that's going to allow an individual to cultivate the pathways that are necessary in order for sexual energy to move within oneself. Men, just keeping in mind that one basic principle here is that when a man is doing a sexual transmutation practice, he's essentially cultivating a pathway for which orgasmic energy can flow, because men generally are explosive as opposed to implosive. So our orgasms basically are one and done. You ejaculate, it's over. So men do have the possibility to be we can be multi-orgasmic. Something else that men can do is that we can become, like I said, extraordinarily implosive and have orgasms that are utterly mind-blowing. But you have to do something, and it requires that you tune into sensitivity. Doing very, very intense, gross, hedonistic things don't necessarily lead you down that path of sensitivity. They, in fact, may lead you down a path of numbness. So if you're interested in how all this works in terms of whether to function, there's two different paths of Tantra. You have a right-hand path and a left-hand path. There was a book called Agora, which is written, I believe, by Robert Svoboda. I love this book. It was kind of mind-blowing. Basically, the main character of the book talks about his experiences with heavy use of alcohol and drugs and sex, etc., in order to generate very, very potent forces. And I will say that very few people can do that. So most of us are better off staying on the subtle end of things and not going so extreme to the left-hand path. So the beautiful thing here is that when you're connecting to what is subtle, you're connecting to what is innate. And what is innate is kind of the point of yoga, right? The point of yoga is to yoke the mind with the body. It's to bring the mind, again, we have a very conditioned kind of mind that's, in essence, it's out of body, right? So when we're doing yoga, we're doing Tantra, we're doing Taoist practice, Tai Chi, Qigong, whatever it is, essentially what we're doing is we're weaving together, we're suturing these things together. We're kind of knitting it all together through the nervous system, through the endocrine system, so that we can be one, right? And it's not only just one mind joined with body, it's also the sort of bigger picture of GOD, generate, organize, destroy, that we're becoming one with the sort of creation itself by recognizing our true nature, which is presence itself. It is the very essence of creation itself, right? It is that aspect within you that from point A to point B, from birth to death, that does not change, the consciousness itself, right? So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but going back to the point of this video, which is how much charge is needed? Very little. Again, it's about cultivating sensitivity. So a sexual transmutation practice, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through a basic progression. This basic progression is what I do every single morning before I do my sort of yoga and whatever else I do in the morning. And what it does is it connects me to my sexual energy, because I, like most men, have a tendency to become overly fixated on sex. It is a primary driver for dudes. However, it's a primary driver for men, but it's not necessarily where we want to be all the time, right? Like, we end up basically creating a perceptual haze or a lens around our vision and around how we perceive life. And we end up filtering everything through sex, which doesn't necessarily benefit us. We don't want our primary motivation in life to basically be how to seduce and how to get sex, and etc. So we're wanting to elevate that energy up to the level of the heart, because this is a much broader field of navigation. So that is a man's weakness. I shouldn't say weakness. We'll say positive charge, negative charge. I'll leave out the judgments. So positive charge down by the genitals, negative charge down up by the heart. Some guru I was listening to, some tantric master type, was making a comment once that tantra was made for men, not for women, because women are inherently tantric. I don't know precisely what he means about that, but what I do know is that women generally have a stronger sense of connection to their bodies. They tend to be more fluid in their bodies, more connected in general to their body. And that could partially be because of the various emotional centers. Women have many more emotional centers where men have one. It could be, menstrual cycles, childbirth, any of a number of things. I'm not going to speculate because I'm not a woman. I don't know. But the reality is that based on having personal trained clients for over 25 years, I will say that women generally are way more embodied than dudes. So, and that is excluding athletes. Like, athletic men are obviously way more connected to their bodies than average dude. So going into this sexual transmutation practice, one other thing I want to clarify is the word transmutation doesn't necessarily have to do with sexual energy. It can be just simply moving energy around in general. So if I meditate on my right index finger for some period of time, let's say just the tip of the finger, what ends up happening is I'll start to feel a pressure there, heat, tingling sensations, etc. Usually it takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes that I start feeling such a thing, because what it's doing is that anywhere I put my attention, energy flows to it. So essentially, energy flows to where the attention goes. That's the essence of a transmutation practice, is simply to shift the energy. Now, the reason that sexual transmutation is such a thing, it's because sexual energy is like water. It simply flows downhill. And so it flows downhill till it gets to its lowest point, and then it gets to its lowest point and it settles. And so this generally happens, it happens to men a lot, is that the energy will settle into the sexual area. And then once again, like I said before, we end up filtering our existence through that sexual lens. And that is, in essence, I guess the root of toxic masculinity, of which I will say is not, right? It is innate for dudes to function in a lot of ways through their sex drive, right? But it's something we have to become conscious of, right? So I don't want to use, again, this idea that something is toxic. It's like all aggression that comes from men is somehow toxic. Anyway, that's another video for another time. So to describe the practice really briefly, this is what I do. Like I said before, I do my yoga, and it helps me steam the sexual energy. Again, it's like water. The application of concentration, one's awareness, one's focus, however you want to call it, to that water creates a steam, or it generates heat and then creates a steam. So that's what we're going to do really quickly. So this is going to be a real brief practice. First thing we want to do is we want to do some sort of rapid breathing. The rapid breathing can be breath of fire, or it can be bellows breath. I'm going to go ahead and teach you breath of fire. So breath of fire, I'm going to go ahead and lower the camera very slightly. Breath of fire is done from down here below the navel. So when I pull in my belt line, air goes out. And when I relax my belt line, air comes in. So it's basically rapid. So just in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now that's breath of fire. It's difficult for a lot of people. Somehow there's a reciprocal breath of fire that sometimes happens, which I don't understand this. People pull in and they inhale. So if you find yourself doing that, just stop. Just go into bellows breath instead, because what bellows breath is simply rapid breathing diaphragmically. So I'm just breathing in and out, in and out, in and out really quickly. You can do it through the mouth or the nose, but if you do it through the mouth, you might get dizzy. So you want to do this for about 1.5 minutes to a minute. Again, either pumping the navel in and out. Again, keep in mind when the navel pulls in, air goes out, and that is breath of fire. Or doing the bellows breath, rapid in and out, diaphragmic only. Don't worry about the navel point. I will say that breath of fire, in my opinion, is more effective. And it does something very special, which is it draws your awareness to your body's center of gravity. So we connect to our innate center of gravity as opposed to the conditioned center of gravity, which exists here. So in other words, it is a stronger suture, is a stronger weaving that happens when you function through breath of fire as opposed to bellows breath. So you want to do that 1 minute at least, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, as long as you wish, but 1 minute at least. So pumping in and out of the navel, breath of fire or bellows breath. Once you're saturated with oxygen, you want to take a deep breath in, retain the breath. I know a lot of people having a weird anxiety around breath retention. That's something that you need to continue practicing so you get over that anxiety. I've taught a lot of men who they retain the breath and they kind of like freak out, and I don't quite understand it because they're completely saturated with oxygen by the time you do a couple minutes of bellows breath or breath of fire. So it doesn't make any sense. The anxiousness comes up, but and I'm not going to speculate as to emotionally what's going on. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. That's another video. So once the breath is retained, you want to start to contract and relax the genitals. Again, you're contracting and relaxing, contracting and relaxing. It doesn't have to be fast. Just contract, relax, or you can do pulsing, quick contractions. Until what? Until you feel something. What do you want to feel? You want to feel that the genitals are highlighted, vivid, in technicolor. You want to feel the horny sensation or just the sexy feeling, or you may feel heat or a tingle, something. Once you feel that something, then what you begin to do is you start to exhale very slowly, contract your anus, your perineum, your genitals, pulling your belt line. You pull mula bandha, or root lock is the other term for that. So, and what that does is that's a hydraulic, right? So it's like hydraulics for energy. So you end up pressurizing the energy upward, right? So you're pulling this root lock, you're pressurizing the energy upward, you're connected to that sexual feeling, the sexual energy. And then what you want to do is right above the perineum, right about the level of the belt line, again, but directly above the perineum, you're going to place your awareness. And all the energy will be then shunted to that space inside the belly. And in your mind's eye, you may perceive it as light. Like for me, I perceive it as a ball of light. And so once this happens, once I kind of perceive, once my awareness is placed inside the belly there, once I can kind of perceive some light there. And again, if you don't perceive any light, you don't perceive any heat, or you don't perceive anything there, that's fine. Just keep your awareness there. Just keep in mind that these practices are meant to be done repeatedly. If you do something for 40 days, it'll essentially cultivate the nervous system so that you can, again, I have to emphasize how important this is to connect to what's innate. I just know by the age of 28, for me anyway, by the time I reached age 28, I felt incredibly disconnected from my body. Why? I was doing everything in life that I was supposed to do at that point. And at that point in my life, I was like going to the gym and I was eating well and I was doing all these things. I was studying to be a dietitian and I was studying exercise physiology and la 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 la. In other words, I was doing all these things that were supposed to connect me to my body, at least as it was presented to me by science and by the university system. But the reality is I felt more disconnected and numb than ever. And there's probably a lot of factors that went into that. But the reality was it wasn't until I started meditating, doing these kinds of practices, doing yoga every single day, that I started to feel integrated into my body once again. The best way I can kind of describe this, and some of you who are watching this video may relate to this idea. One time I was on a massage table, and I was right around the age of 28, 30, something like that. And I was on this table, and it felt like my feet were on the other side of the room. And it just felt like, I was like, why do my feet feel so far away? Well, it's because, again, my center of gravity, my center of awareness had shifted. It was in the mind, right? And the mind is inherently not embodied. We have to keep that in mind. The mind is not the brain. And so the brain, yes, the brain is part of the body, but the mind is not. The mind is kind of etheric in nature. So you can feel incredibly disconnected from the body. And so the point of yoga is to, again, weave all this back together. It's to yoke all these things. And that's the point of Tantra, Taoism, Tai Chi, Qigong, et cetera, is to aid in this process of weaving back together. You could say martial arts even. Again, like I said before, a lot of male athletes I know, like football players and things like that, they use their body, but they still have a greater body integration than the average dude. So with all that said, so once I went on a tangent there, but once the energy, like I said, has shifted up towards the navel point area, that space above the perineum, inside the body, inside the belly, right around the belt line. Once your awareness is there, then I generally kind of meditate on that space a little bit just to harmonize with it, to kind of feel it and sense it. And again, I perceive heat or light, generally speaking, in that area. So, my sales pitch. So if you are interested in cultivating your sexual energy, because that is the point of Tantra, that is the point of all these practices. And this is why it is so essential for men to learn to elevate this energy, to bring it up to the level of the heart, so that we can connect to life in a much greater way. And the way I look at it is that it is about making love to life, right? We're learning to make love to life. And so I offer a sexual energy coaching program. You can check out my website below. I think I keep changing the name of it, but right now I think I call it on my website something like the Sovereign Tantric or whatever it may be. But the reality is it's a 6-week program that's meant to essentially guide an individual along a 40-day period of time, which is the time needed in order for the nervous system to adapt to a new pattern. And so it's an incredibly effective kind of program in terms of helping an individual connect to their body in new ways. It helps them kind of confront obstacles they have in terms of things that, I guess, emotions and things that they've been backed up and repressed that keep them feeling disconnected from who they are. So if you have any interest in that program, you can check out my website, which is linked down below the video. And I believe my email is posted several places on my website. And you can go ahead and email me for more information if you're interested. Thank you all for watching this video.